that about me.
Yes.
I'm native all the time. I'm Dave.
I'm Sean.
This is Barstools and Bandtalk.
The complete music bucket list. And I tell you, we just keep bringing it. And it's not because we're so great. We just happen to stumble upon somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And this, for me tonight, is going to be one of the you have milestones, you have different sorts of things. This man was truly a hero of mine growing up. And we just had an opportunity to chat with him before we started recording. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to just say Barry Connors from Toronto. He posted, I believe it was last week, and we're going to talk about it, the 38th anniversary of Get It On Credit, which was probably one of their best known albums. And just a great man. This is going to be really good. Canadian drummer icon. And I know people go, oh, another drummer. Well, you know what? Both time drummers get their due. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm here for.
Too. I do. I love drummers too. And you know what he's promised us already is he's got, well, I've got stories and more stories and more stories, as it sounds perfect for what we do here at Barstools and Bandtalk. So let's just bring out Barry Connors, shall we? All the way from Waterloo, Ontario. To be there.
Good day, sir.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're each having a little bit of beard envy right now. Sean and I are having a little bit of a beard and mustache envy of what you have going on there, brother.
Yeah, it's funny. People say, why don't you use the darkening on the rest of your beard?
Yeah, well, yeah, I do.
Use any darkening. If my mustache would go white, I think it would even be cooler, but it just won't.
Yeah. Well, you and Mike Levine, I think, were the two guys in Canadian music that were known for your mustaches, for sure, right?
Well, there's another guy that we sadly lost this year that I shared a record label with, Neil Peart.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But and he had one of the, actually when he first came on the scene, he had one of those. It was like a professor mustache.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe that's how he got the name. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yes, sir. So I was just saying in the intro that you had a post that I picked up on last weekend, and I sent you the Facebook friend request. I think it was 38 years, the 38th year anniversary. Get It On Credit. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
And that blows my mind because
mine too.
Well, and I'll tell you, before we even start, this is I kind of joke around that I'm a guy that just stole a lot of licks from people and make them my own, and I feel like this is one of the first interviews that I'm going to do that I owe somebody a royalty check. Because I ripped an awful lot of stuff off that album, my friend, and that's what do you remember about recording that? I mean, well, let's even go back a little bit further. I mean, you guys are on the scene, and I mean, what was Toronto like back then? Not the band, but the music scene, Toronto itself.
Well, if we're going way back, yeah, it was. You couldn't get work in the city if you weren't doing the right cover tunes. So I was playing in bands. I started, and we'd get the gigs in Arnprior, and we'd get the gigs in Newfoundland or Halifax for really crap money. But those were the days when we'd arrive on Monday morning and set up and tear down Saturday night. So we'd play 6 nights for very, very little money. And if you were good enough, on Monday, word got around, and Friday and Saturday were packed.
Yeah.
So the better the band got, the closer we got to be able to play in town in Toronto, the city. So it was crazy times. I mean, thousands and thousands of bands clamoring to get work, and thousands and thousands of agents that claimed they could get you better gigs. And that's right back when agents were mostly full of shit.
What?
Yeah, I think back to a story where, and this is not, as we go on, you'll know that, I have absolutely zero ego. I'm blessed and happy to have ever had anybody clap for me. That's the truth. We had an agent come, and we did Life in the Fast Lane. And we worked hard, this band, and we had a whole repertoire. We wanted to get gigs in Toronto, and the guy said blatantly, I'd never book you guys. And the guitar player said, why? He said, drumming stinks. He looked at me and said, "You're horrible." I was like, "Whoa!" And the band was all like, "Okay, get out." And hey, guess what? I'm not horrible.
No, sir.
He was wrong.
No, and that's right. And isn't it nice when things turn around, and eventually they did, where you don't have to, you look back and you laugh about it. You don't have to worry about sticking it to them, right?
Yeah, and I've never had that in my personality. Again, I was really lucky and blessed. But if we're going into the actual band Toronto, it was funny because they let their bass player and drummer go right after they recorded Head On at Morin Heights, and that was mid 1981, so 39 years ago. And I had heard, somebody called me, I think it was my best friend now, Jim Gilmore, who plays keyboards in Saga, said, "Hey, Toronto's audition." He had just joined Saga and got the word. So I called the record company, and a really nice receptionist took my name and number and said, "Yeah, we'll call you." And I called the next day, and she said, "Yeah, I told you we'll call you." And I called the next day, and I did it for 15 days, and the poor girl hated me. She just hated me. And on the 16th day, she called me, and her whole tone and her attitude was, "You got an audition, and we can't wait to be rid of you." I got the gig. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. But that's kind of what it took back then, really, is just the tenacity. You had to have that belief and the drive.
100%. I fought to get the gig. I mean, they had 15 drummers, and I'm good friends with half of them. It actually came down to me or Kim Hunt, who is a great Toronto drummer who played with a lot of different bands and still a friend. I know Gary McCracken was in the audition, and Gary is a monster. I couldn't be as good as Gary if I studied for the rest of my life. So yeah, I lucked out. But to continue the funny story, I had a band, and we were a progressive band. We were compared to Yes and Genesis.
Okay.
And we were making about $35 a month each, not to split, each. And I had one gig left with the band at a club called Larry's Hideaway in Toronto.
Oh, yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and it was, I think, the 23rd of December, maybe. I was in rehearsals with Toronto. The band hated me for quitting, the progressive band. We were called Aircraft. And Toronto all came out after I rehearsed all day. They came out and watched the band. And it was, the guitar player said to me afterwards, "Why do you want to join Toronto?" We had 10-minute songs that were all 9/8 and 13/5, and it was just insane. But anyway, there was
35 reasons why I want to quit this band.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was something to do with the 35 a month I was making.
Yeah.
Sure.
That changed, but there was 40 people at Larry's Hideaway, and New Year's Eve that year, 8 days later, we headlined the Coliseum in Edmonton with 15,000 people.
Wow.
Martha and the Muffins and Klaatu opened. That was my first taste of wow. Mom, I got to get my mom on the phone. I made it, Mom.
Well,
Aww, that's awesome.
And that's the thing, and so, how big of a band were they? I guess before, when they had that first album, and then before you got in, were they a known band where you're like, I got to get this gig, or were they kind of on the upward?
Well, I got to be honest. I was a prog guy. I listened to King Crimson and Yes and Genesis. And if you played in 4/4, I had no respect for you. I just was a drum goof at that point. I was young, and I really wanted to expand my horizons on odd time signatures. So at the time, Toronto was on the radio every day, and I did not like it. And when they called me and said, "Okay, you got an audition, you're up in 2 or 3 days," they told me to go buy one of their records and learn 3 songs off it. And I very reluctantly shelled out that $12.
That's half your fucking paycheck.
That was a third of my monthly income. Yeah. So I wasn't thinking, I love this music. I was thinking, I want to get in this business. And I'm tired of, driving 700 miles for $80 a week. So at the time, it wasn't the music, it was the professionalism. And once I got in, my whole brain changed. I realized, wow, You know,
Right.
this is the business. This is what I aspired to be part of.
Right.
And
Right
we
on.
did really well. I mean, Toronto toured with Ted Nugent and Journey and Nazareth and all kinds of great names all over North America. So, my things of I don't like this music changed very rapidly to, this is my make music the best music I can.
So did you play on Get It With Credit?
Yeah, Get It On Credit. We started that gig I just talked about New Year's Eve. So we went into rehearsals in January of 1982, and I was blessed, honored, privileged to be in the room with Jim Valance. If you know Jim Valance, Jim is Jimmy quit, Jody got married in Brian's summer of '69. So Jimmy didn't want to tour anymore, but he wanted to write songs. So I don't think Brian's written a song without Jimmy since. And Jim has written for everybody from Aerosmith to Tina Turner to, he's a mega star. Super nice guy, sat with me and taught me what it was like to record as a 4/4 drummer without a click track. So I've never played with a click track. I'm working on stuff now with it. My feel, my approach, my attack has never been married to a click track. And part of that was Jim Valance. Jim Valance sat with me because, as you guys know, drums are first. Doesn't matter what else happens during the first week. We want 15 drum tracks. We want them good, and we'll add everything else later. So, yeah, Jim sat with me in rehearsal and in the studio, and he was kind of my click track and super creative, awesome guy that helped me become the drummer I am.
So you didn't record that album with a click then?
No, I've recorded nothing with a click.
Well, that's interesting because we're about to do a couple tunes in our little fun band off that, and we're going to use a click. So I don't know what the hell that's going to sound like now.
Yeah. Well, now my feeling has changed, and I know lots of great drummers that play along with a click, but to me, it felt like handcuffs.
Sure.
And I watched a thing on Facebook the other day or the other week, and it was a guy that took apart Led Zeppelin.
Yes.
And he put the music to a click track. Did you see that?
Yes, sir.
And John is like this. I mean, so we're not talking about a guy who's not playing with a click track. We're talking about one of the greatest drummers in the history of the world, right?
Yep.
I mean, who
No
cares
question.
if John Bonham sped up or slowed down? He made music what it is. He was probably, as a kid, my biggest influence. So, I felt that the click track was like handcuffs, and luckily,
you can't poo-poo on it because obviously there's something to be said about the altruism of having something on time every time. But it's so funny. During when COVID first started, so I'm going to learn how to do some recording, some home recording. So I bought some gear, and the first thing I was trying to figure out was this recording gear and how they're trying to emulate a bass drum sound and make it sound human. By being it off a little bit. I was like, well, Jesus, why don't you just fucking hit a bass drum? Like, I don't understand why you have to do it all this work. But that's just the way my brain works. But there's so much to it to make it sound real, and to be real, it's going to be off a little bitty bit.
That's exactly my feeling. I mean, the click track, the drum machine, all that stuff it's just wrong. I can hear a song played two ways. I can hear the same song with a drum machine, the same song with a drummer that has feel and speeds up and slows down. And I'll take the drummer every single time. I mean, mention another great drummer that I love, Eddie Zeman. He put something on Facebook a while ago about, give us a break and let's have some real music, Let the guy speed up or slow down. Let's have some feel. Half of the music happening out there now are, in my opinion, is being made by people that don't know how to play instruments.
No, you're right.
How to work a computer.
You're right.
Yep. And that's killing us.
I remember reading a Modern Drummer article with J.R. Robinson that pointed in a lot of the hits in the 80s, like Steve Winwood and whatnot. And he talked, oh my God. And he talked about recording with Lionel Richie. And he said that Lionel Richie, when he heard real drums, didn't like it because he was so used to the drum machine that he thought the feel aspect for Lionel Richie was weird. And to me, that just seemed to your point, wrong, because I do like that ebb and flow. I was geeking out on, I found this thing on YouTube where isolated drum tracks. And if you listen to Highway Star by Deep Purple, amazing cut. Whole lot of sloppy by itself and whole lot of cool.
Yeah. We do that song these days, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah, it's an encore and it's huge every night. I mean, Holly kills it, and I've got a great band. So,
well, I'm glad you mentioned Holly because we've been fortunate. Darby Mills was the first, I guess, quote unquote, Canadian icon singer that we had, and then we had Lee Aaron. So Holly's the third, what I would consider in that genre. What was it like, and what is it like to play with her? Because I mean, a lot of people around here talk about when you guys were out here back in the day and opened for you, how amazing of a singer she was. And I never had the honor to see you guys play in a bar, but they just talked about what a fantastic singer she was.
Yeah, you know, I can easily say, I guess maybe I'm biased, but she was part of the reason my musical taste towards the band changed. Holly is, in my opinion, the greatest female singer to ever come out of this country. And, you know, I have to pull that back by saying she's an American. So,
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but thank goodness she moved here and became part of Toronto. One of the great things that I learned very quickly once I got over, you know, going from bars to right away, Toronto was big. We sold a lot of records like right away, and Your Daddy Don't Know immediately was a giant hit for the band,
Mm-hmm.
which I'll talk about that as a joke in a minute. But I got over quickly going out in front of 3,000 or 5,000 people and worrying about how the band was going to do. After a couple of shows, realizing Holly had everybody in the palm of her hand, just right away. And one of the great things that a lot of people, I guess, maybe don't think of if you're not in the business was we used to love to do our gig, finish, have a couple of drinks, and go to a local club. And our road manager would tell the band, you know, Barry and Holly want to get up and they want to jam. And we'd go into packed clubs everywhere, and you know, she would just kill it. Yeah, I wouldn't even have to do it. I'd just play 2 and 4 in a blues, and Holly would break glasses on people's tables. It was unbelievable. So yeah, my respect for Holly is absolutely huge. I love Darby. You know, Darby toured with us as a kid on her first tour with Lock Up Your Sons, and I actually played for. I think I went to Europe 3 times with Lee Aaron. So
right on. Did you play on one of her albums too?
I did not. I joined when they just released Call of the Wild.
Okay.
And that was Jerry Mercer from April Wine.
Yeah. Right.
And one of the things you mentioned, you're going to tell us a story about Your Daddy Don't Know. And when the COVID thing was going on, and you know, I'd be on the couch drinking a beer, you know, I'd go down the YouTube rat hole, and that video would come on. Where did you shoot that video? Do you remember? Yeah.
We shot the original video at the Danforth Music Hall.
Okay.
Excuse me. So let me back up. We're recording Get It On Credit, and we were on Solid Gold, and that was Neil Dixon and Steve Propass. And the idea was we want, I think, I don't know, I have a bad memory because I'm old, but maybe 12 songs were going to make the record. So they wanted us to do 20, and they wanted to pick the best 12. So we were halfway through working on this, and they brought us a demo of 2 guys sitting in their basement with this song called Your Daddy Don't Know.
Okay.
And it was horrible. It was absolutely disgusting, and we refused to do it. And the record company had a big meeting and said, there's no refusing. You're doing this. That's all there is to it. If you don't do it great and we don't love it, then it won't make the album. So we worked on it, and we had a deal in California with Network Records. And the guy was flying up to our rehearsal, our pre-recording rehearsal. We're getting ready to go in the studio. And the guy flew up, and this was this big LA guy with a couple of assistants and a big cigar. Yeah, how you doing? And we all agreed, let's make minor mistakes. Don't do it well. Don't show off in this song. Let's just get this over with. They'll hate it, and we can, get rid of this garbage. So we played the song, and the song ended. And the guy went, "That's it! I got hit! That's a hit!" Guess what? It was our biggest hit.
Yeah,
Wow.
no question. No question.
Yeah. So that was that.
So is it still a fun song to play live?
Oh, it's so much fun because we've been lucky enough now where classic rock is big. So, we're lucky to join the ranks of Trooper and Streetheart and the Headpins and Kim Mitchell and Tom Cochrane. We've played with all those bands 20 times in the last 5 years. And we get crowds of anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000 people.
Nice.
And it's a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, it's super exciting. Everything's great. But when we do Daddy, the place goes nuts.
Right.
There are times when Holly turns to me laughing that it is so loud. The crowd is drowning us out, and we're a loud rock band. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's not my favorite Toronto song, but when I go to the mailbox and there's airplay royalties, it's my favorite.
Well, there has to be a lot coming out of Halifax because we've got 4 radio stations, and they have to play it 4 times each a day. I kid you not.
Well, I get a nickel every time. Think of that from here on out.
There you go.
So now, Barry, did you have writing credits on that album?
The Hired Gun, they decided after they fired the bass player and the drummer that they just wanted hired guns. They just wanted a couple of sidemen.
Okay.
So when we first released the record, it's pretty funny. I auditioned with a bass player I didn't know. And then when it got to the finals, they called me back and I auditioned with Gary Lalonde. Do you know Gary?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Gary is a great friend and a great player. And I went to Gary's house. First day that I met him was the day we auditioned together and shook hands and talked. And we went and played and we both got the gig. So the first, I don't know, the record sold, I think, a couple of 100,000 copies. I think the first 20, 25,000 or so, they had the 4 band people's names, and then in smaller letters underneath, bass, Gary Lalonde, drums, Barry Connors. But after that, I guess things started going so well that they moved us up and gave us the same font size as the rest of the band.
Nice.
Well,
Yeah.
and that tune for me, again, 2 and 4, but tasty. Just
Thanks very much. Yeah, I did the
I
best
love
I
that drum part.
could and tried to fix it up a bit when we got in the studio, so at least I would be happy with what I did. And it's really funny. I do see a lot of cover bands do it and a lot of videos on Facebook, and it's very rare the drummer plays it the way I do.
Yeah.
I watch a song and think, I don't like this song, but you're not playing it right. Would you at least play the fills I did, or would you, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny because Sean and I talk about this now a lot. Like, we get this little side project on the go right now. And, when we're 80s kids, Sean and I are 80s kids. We're mid-late 80s. We're hitting the bars, and that's what we're doing. But we grew up in the 80s, obviously, listening to all this music. It's hard to replicate because it's so precise. It's like, it's very accurate playing. That whole genre, like whether it be Blondie, whether it be Toronto, whether it be Headpins, all that stuff, it was very precise playing. Like, you can't just sort of put a distortion pedal on and wing it. It's got to be very accurate playing.
Well, it was a machine. I mean, Toronto was a machine. It wasn't Toronto, the 6 people. It was Toronto and Solid Gold and ProPass Management. And, we didn't do anything that there wasn't 10 other people involved that ran the business. So we were part of a business, really.
Well, and that would have been it's not like now where, you can punch stuff in and, do one verse and just cut and paste it. I mean, it's like, if it was a 5-minute song and you screwed up at 4 minutes and 52 seconds, it was pretty much start and take another take, correct?
Absolutely correct. And if you did it 3 times in a row, you were fired.
Yeah, fair enough. So you must have done okay because they kept you around for a while.
Yeah, they did. They kept me around. Kind of a sad story. We were out touring that record, and I had come from this prog rock background, so I played on stage for the first 6 months of touring everywhere like I thought they wanted me to play. And after less than a year, they called Gary Lalonde and I into the office and said, we're firing you guys. We're not happy with your playing, and thanks for coming out. You got 6 or 8 shows left, and we'll see you. So we went back out, and I decided at that time, I'm going to play like me. What have I got to lose now? I'm already fired. So I played like me. And after about 4 shows, the managers called me in alone to the office and said, what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, you're playing. What the hell happened? I said, I'm playing for me now, not for you. They said, you're not fired. Keep it up. And I felt really bad because, I love Gary like a brother. And Gary said, what should we do now? And I said, Gary, I'm going to stay. And, did Gary show me or what?
Yeah. Fair enough.
We're lucky to open for them now. So, great friend, great guy, great bass player. It shouldn't have happened that way, but yeah, I stayed on.
Well, and music's a funny thing, right? I mean, there's tons of stories about you having to leave your buddies behind to make it, and that's just sometimes the way it goes, right?
Yeah, it really is. It can be ruthless. There's hundreds of words. I like to sum it up as it's the business that has no business calling itself a business.
Yeah, fair enough. Before we move on with the next series of questions, I know that Holly's had some health challenges, and I understand she's doing better. So if you're talking to her, please pass along our get well soon.
We talk all the time. I've got a room in my house that's Holly's room, and half of her stuff is here. So
right on.
Every time we do a gig, she's here for 3 or 4 days before and a couple of days after, and we laugh like it was 38 years ago.
Well, let her know too. She get a ton, and I mean a ton of people asking about her in Halifax all the time. So
that's fantastic. You can tell anybody that asks. Holly sends her love. She loves Halifax.
Right. Fantastic.
She loves the East Coast. She loves. She's just a great soul, wonderful person, awesome. And her health is doing well. She's in good shape. She has one major problem, and that's the president running her company.
Fair enough.
Country, excuse me. No offense to anybody that likes Donald Trump. Just turn us off right now if you do.
Well, and hey, man, we're everybody's allowed to state their opinion on stuff.
Of course, right? They are, yeah, and I'm going to get hate mail for that. So.
Well, we'll deflect that because you're one of my go-to guys from back in the day, so I'll stand in front of you anytime, my friend. So what I want to sort of shift gears a little bit on, because one of my favorite albums was that Coney Hatch, or the first Coney Hatch album that you played on. Because when you played on it, you replaced a guy that was kind of known as like a Phil Reddish kind of 2/4, and Much Music really started focusing a lot on the more rock stuff. So they used to play a lot of stuff off that album a lot, so I got to hear it a lot.
Right.
But I absolutely loved that album.
Thank you very much.
What can you tell me about that album?
I'll tell you, it is the best record I've ever recorded. I left Toronto because of Coney Hatch. I was living with a fellow called Neil McDermott, a great friend and one of the best sound men, road managers ever that I've ever worked with. And he said, hey, Coney Hatch is looking for a drummer. And at the time, Toronto was becoming a sinking ship. So I thought maybe it's time to make a move. And anyway, long story short, I did. I auditioned again. I got the Coney Hatch job, and we went through quite a number of producers. Coney Hatch was on the same label as Rush, and were managed by the same manager as Rush, Ray Daniels and Anthem Records. So they went through quite a number of producers in pre-production, and we decided on a guy, Max Norman. And Max Norman of Ozzy Osbourne fame, Y&T, all kinds of real heavy, great bands. We just connected, like we connected big. And got along great. We wrote all that stuff in a rehearsal hall, and then we went to Morin Heights, the studio, where you see Neil Peart drumming for Red Barchetta and all those songs. And it was fantastic. It was great. I had a Ludwig endorsement. Bill Ludwig was behind me completely, and And Max Norman was a guy that was no click track. You know, you got to have good feel and you got to have good fills. And occasionally he'd say, you know, do something wild here. And the Coney Hatch guys would say, we don't think that's appropriate to have a big wild drum fill there, like the start of Wrong Side of Town. And Max said, no, I don't care what you feel. If he's got a good feel, I want to hear it right now. So I did that feel, and he went, oh, that's it. Yeah, we're doing that. So it was a lot of fun, a great record, and we got the shaft. I think that's the bottom line on that one.
I'd agree because I mean, that band was always two very unique singers. You know, one kind of, Carl kind of had that, we'll say like Lou Gramm type range, and
Sure.
And Andy Kern was more of the rock guy kind of, but it just seemed to work. And it was, that's another band. I don't know. Did you play out here Halifax way with them? Did you ever get out this way with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We did across Canada. We ended up playing with Crocus and Accept and all kinds of bands. We got on some great tours.
Were you on the tour? Let me take it back to 83. Were you with them in 83?
No, I left Toronto very late 84.
Okay.
And joined Coney Hatch.
Yeah,
so I did almost all the end of 84. Then we recorded. I did most of 85, and ended up leaving them for Lee Aaron. And we were very disappointed. We were on tour, and Andy Kern and I are still very close friends. Andy is the GM for the El Macombo here in Toronto now.
Yep.
They've started a record label, him and Michael Weckerly. But we used to go to record stores in, Tampa, Florida, or Ohio, or Toledo, and they would say we never got a copy, or we got one copy and sold it. And that was it. We could not find our record. Somebody put something on Facebook a few weeks ago, and I kept it. And it was a write-up from a rock magazine that did heavy bands like Coney Hatch back in the day, and it was spot on. It said, not tooting my own horn or anything like it, it just said one of the best records in 1984-85 to come out of Canada. And the band just rocked, and they were competing with Bon Jovi and a couple of other big names, and they just got left in the dust, not because of the music, because of the lack of promotion. And, the band kind of wrote it off that Rush was huge and making tons of money. And I personally, don't know for a fact, but why put us in a studio and spend $200,000 recording a record that you're not going to promote?
Kind of bizarre.
Right off.
Would you say because you're on Anthem, it's like you were kind of maybe overshadowed by, because Kim Mitchell had started to bring up his game by that point too. He just broke away from Max Webster, he had his own solo stuff, and then he had, of course, he was on Mercury, I think. And then you had Rush. I mean, so were you left behind because it was the other people that were on your label?
Well, my personal belief is yes. We were a good band. There's no question about it. We could hold our own. We played everywhere. I mean, we played the Palladium in L.A. as an unknown, and it was sold out, and people went nuts. We rocked it. We were a good band with good songs, but we just couldn't find a record in a record store. It's crazy.
Okay. I got an Andy Kern story for you.
Cool.
There's a gentleman out here that runs our junior hockey team by the name of Cam Russell. And Cam used to play for the Chicago Blackhawks back in the 90s.
Andy's favorite.
Yeah, exactly. So here's where I'm going with this. So I lived in Toronto. We used to go out to this bar called the Artful Dodger. And Phil X used to have a band that used to play there every now and again.
Yep.
Andy was out twice, met him. I just remember being a really nice guy. Anyway, flashback to I moved back from Toronto. Cam Russell, and if you go on YouTube, he's the guy that fought Ty Domi, and Domi got the hood over his head, and Cam got knocked out cold. Anyway, long story short, Cam calls me up one day. You're a musician. Do you know Andy Kern? And I'm like, well, that's kind of a random thing. What he told me was when Chicago used to come into town, Cam would go with Andy and a couple of the other guys to PM Toronto's beside Maple Leaf Gardens and hang out and have a bunch of beers if they were staying in town. And I just thought that was such a great story because it's like, you're a hockey player. How would you know Andy Curran? You know what I mean? And he said he was very good friends with him. So hopefully that's accurate. Cam's not pulling my leg there.
If he's a Black Hawk, it's accurate.
Fair enough.
Yeah, 100%. Andy is probably one of the nicest guys ever. One of the quietest anti-conflict guys. And, if Andy wanted to pull out a wallet of, all his connections and close friends, it would be royalty.
Yeah.
He doesn't in any way ever. I mean, that's just the way he is. Great guy.
All right, Barry, so take us back now. So you did the stint with Toronto. You're there with the band, what, 4 years?
I was with the band 3.
3 years, okay. Then you did the Coney Hatch gig for how long?
About a year and a half.
Okay. And what happens next? Lee Aaron?
Yeah. Again, we were touring, and I'll tell you a funny story.
That's what we're here for.
Somebody that can remain nameless in the record company.
Okay.
In the ending days, we were arguing. There was no record sales. We couldn't find a record in the record stores, but we're still playing to sell out crowds with Crocus and Accept and all kinds of great big bands. And somebody in the record company called me in and they said, you know what, we want to promote the band more, but we can't do it with you having that mustache. This is a serious story.
Yeah, boy.
I'm
I
not
hope
joking.
so.
Our biggest record selling band is Rush. And, you're just trying to copy Neil Peart. So I think we could probably put some more effort into things if you were to shave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you think of that? How's that for a music business?
Yeah, it's about right, because it's and I know it's largely run by accountants and calculator punchers, right?
Yeah.
Sounds to me like you have a plight for the Me Too generation now.
So I went, I said, I don't think that's going to happen. I went home, and it's really funny. Within a day or two, a friend of mine that I knew, John Albany, a really great guitar player, was at the time in a relationship with Lee Aaron and her guitar player. He wrote most of that stuff back in the day, What You Do to My Body and all that kind of stuff. And he called me and said, hey, we fired our drummer. And I want to pick your brain. We've got this show in Austria in 2 weeks, and it's called Rock on the Rocks. And we play at the top of a mountain. It's 10,000 feet above sea level. So you have to go up every day for a week and get used to the air. And we need a drummer. We've got $1,000 and all expenses. Anybody's up. Phone him back. I know someone. Me. He went, are you kidding? That's what I was hoping for. I said, yeah, I'm in. So that was that.
And I'm keeping the damn mustache.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not trying to say that was the demise of Coney Hatch, my mustache, but.
Well, and I remember Andy Curran being on Much Music promoting that album, and when he talked about getting you in, he said Barry Connors, the guy with the wicked mustache. He made some sort of reference to that, and everybody's like, yeah. You know what I mean? It's a trademark. It's a trademark thing, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had fun. The band went and was great before I joined. And Dave Ketchum, I'm friends with Dave, AC/DC pounding drummer.
Yep.
That's not, I'm more flair and, I'm more comfortable in front of 10,000 people than I am in front of 10. So let me do what I do and let me loose. And Max Norman and Coney Hatch were great with that. And that's why the album turned out the way it did.
Right.
So I want to pick your brain. You mentioned you had a Ludwig endorsement. I remember seeing a lot. Again, it was probably on Canada's New Music or whatever it was. Remember, Dave? Every Saturday night it was the one music show we used to get here in Halifax. But I remember seeing a live Toronto show. Terry David Mulligan.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there was a Toronto concert, and I swear to God, if I'm imagining this correctly, you were using a set of those drums that Chris Slade originally came up with, the sort of the conch shell type You know
Yeah,
what
they're
I'm talking
North
about?
Drums, and that was not me. That was my sir, Jimmy
Okay.
Fox.
Okay. Thank you for correcting me, because it was like I wasn't sure if that happened or not.
The kick drum looks like a pair of frozen hockey pants.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know how they sound, but
Yeah,
so
they're
are
garbage.
you okay? Fair enough. So are you still a Ludwig player?
So I'm really glad you asked that. So if you wanted to back up, a fun story, we were on tour with Nazareth. And Nazareth is all from a town that's not too far from where my mother and all her side of the family is from in Scotland. So around my dinner table in Christmas, when we would have aunts and uncles over, it took me about 5 seconds before I started talking with a wee bit of an accent. And I'd go into, hey, can you pass the salt, please, you wee bastard? And Nazareth, when I was a kid, was like, wow, I love Nazareth. And then my first tour with Toronto was, we're going on tour for 5 months with Nazareth. We had like 40 shows or something ridiculous. And as an excited little kid, in 3 minutes of my first real meeting, I started going, wow, I love you lads, you're the best lads that I've been. I go, Buddy, he's got the accent down, Buddy. So that turned into a tremendous friendship. After maybe 2 weeks on tour, Daryl Sweet, the drummer, has passed away, became my best friend and mentor in the whole music world. He was the greatest human on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to say, Buddy, you're riding with us now. You're coming on our bus tonight. We had our own bus, but, he'd say, no, you're coming with us. And that happened for quite some time. And then they used to call me on stage to play cowbell, son of a bitch, all the time. So if Toronto was going to leave to get to the next show before Nazareth finished, it was a problem. Daryl would and then it went from me playing cowbell behind the drums to out front with Danny McCafferty playing the cowbell. And it was a thrill for me. I mean, we played Texas, 15,000 people, and I'm playing with Nazareth. It's like, wow, this is amazing. And the guitar player came to me after one show. We were very close friends. For some reason, we don't talk anymore, but he said, you cannot go on stage and ride on Nazareth's bus anymore. And I said, why not? He said, you're going to blow the tour. We don't want to get kicked off the tour. It's time to just mind your own business, get on our bus, and forget being a star with Nazareth. Whatever reason he had, he was the boss, and he signed my check.
Mm-hmm.
So I got on the bus. The next day, we get to the sound check, and Daryl Sweet comes up to me. He says, Buddy, where were you last night? We wanted you up there to join us. And I said, well, Brian kind of thought it's a bad idea if I join you. He goes, really? Brian told you not to come up. And I said, well, yeah, I don't want any conflict. Daryl's a 5'2", nothing but a solid muscle Scottish bulldog. He could run through a brick wall. So he said, follow me, let's go find Brian, buddy. I was like, oh no. Oh crap. So we go to the dressing room and he says, Brian, do you like touring with Nazareth? And Brian said, oh, we love it. It's the best tour we've ever had. He goes, great. Would you like to stay on tour with Nazareth? And Brian said, yeah, we would. And he says, Barry's going to play cowbell every fucking night from here on in. You have a problem with that? Brian said, no, I don't. He said, good. Come on, Barry. And I just trucked along behind him like a little kid, And I never heard another word about it. I don't think he talked to me for 2 weeks. But anyway, back to Bill Ludwig. We were in Texas. Never forget, it was Houston. And I had my green Vista lights. Do you know those drums?
They were in the Coney Hatch video, were they not?
No, they're in Daddy Don't Know.
Okay.
They're see-through green.
Okay, yeah.
I still have them downstairs. They're 44 years old. And they were on stage. We're opening, and Daryl Sweet came to me and said, Buddy, have you ever met Bill Ludwig? And I said, I'm 24 years old. Are you kidding? Bill Ludwig? That's like, did I meet God next? What's going on? So he said, you're going to meet him tonight. So I was all nervous, and we were sitting having dinner with the crew backstage, and I was sitting next to Holly, and we're mid-dinner, and a big came down on the table. Said, "Buddy, stand up." So Daryl wants me to do something, I do it, right? I stood up. He says, "Buddy, Bill Ludwig, Bill Buddy." And from that moment on, 38 years, Bill Ludwig has been one of my best friends.
Oh, that's so cool. Cool story.
It's so amazing. It's one of the best. In Nazareth's dressing room, and instead of Bill watching Nazareth, we talked for the 90-minute show and just talked and talked. And then Bill wanted me to fly to Chicago. So I flew to Chicago. We were getting ready to do the Girls' Night Out record at that point. So I flew to Chicago. Bill toured the factory, gave me everything. I picked out all the drums in the Coney Hatch videos that you've seen, the Maple Ludwigs. And I had stayed 3 or 4 days in a hotel. I couldn't afford it anymore. And Bill said, "Don't go home yet." And I said, "Well, Bill, I can't afford to stay here any longer." He goes, "Oh, I want you to stay at Mom and Dad's." I'm like, holy mackerel. Okay, all right, I check out. He drives me to his mom and dad had this, it's not a mansion, but it was a very nice house in a very prominent neighborhood. And takes me in and says, "Mom, this is Barry. I got to run to an appointment. Take care of him. I'll be back in a few hours." So I had years of great friendship with Bill's mom and dad, but this moment is one of my proudest, most humble moments. We talked for a bit, and she said, "Let me show you to your room." And she took me down a hallway and stopped at a door. There was a star on the door, and over top of the star, it said, "Buddy Rich."
Ah.
And she said, "This is Buddy's room, but he's not here this week. You can stay there."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Exactly. I stayed about 4 days. I think I slept not at all. I just looked around the room all the time. What would Buddy be doing right now?
Well, if he saw you sleeping in his room, it'd be like that bus tape that was on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, and Ludwig drums, I mean, God, one of my favorite that they did was back in the mid to late 80s where they had all their indoor seats on the back of the flatbed. And there was like every drummer that was one of my heroes was on that thing. We couldn't get Ludwig's here in Halifax. So
I'm on the flatbed.
I remember.
Yeah, I'm on the flatbed, and I'm also in the 75th anniversary. We all are wearing tuxedos.
Yeah.
Did you see that one?
I did, absolutely.
Okay, I have it downstairs. It's really funny. During the heyday when that poster came out, I had a party, and somebody really drunk scribbled marker all over it, and it was garbage. So I threw it in the garbage. And another visit to Bill Ludwig's parents, because I lucky enough to have been there many times. She had it on their giant fridge, that poster, and I told her the story that I love that so much, and somebody scribbled all over it. And 3 weeks later, it came in the mail.
Oh wow!
She took it off her fridge and sent it to me. And I got it framed. It's downstairs. I mean, the most classy, amazing people ever. I have hundreds of Ludwig stories. But while we're on it, I have to do this plug for people that don't know. So Bill Ludwig and his dad sold the company to Selmer in 1984. Selmer is band instruments, right? Tubas and saxes and trombones and all that stuff. And he worked at the company for a few years and then left the company. And since Ludwig has sold a couple times, they are now owned by Steinway Pianos. There is nobody in the Ludwig drum organization that has any history whatsoever of how to make drums. So 7 years ago, Bill Ludwig wanted to get back in the business. And we talk every week for the last 38 years, if not twice or more. And he wanted to get back in, and his grandfather started the Ludwig Drum Company back in 1909. He started with a Speed King pedal or a foot pedal. and built the Ludwig Drum Company. Then he got bored, then he sold it. And while he was reaping the rewards of selling it, he got bored again, and he started a company called WFL3, which is William F. Ludwig. And those are fairly famous drums now. They're rare, they're hard to find, and it was another successful drum company. Well, the Ludwig Company was being run into the ground. So he bought it back and turned it into the legacy it was. But when Bill and his dad sold it, he signed away the rights to the name Ludwig. So he decided, I'm going to come out with a new drum company 7 years ago and make snare drums. We're going to call them WFL, and started making snare drums. I and Bill alone, I was the first person. I sold drums to Long McQuaid and Steve, a bunch of artists here in Canada. And now it's turned into Bill has an investor. The investor bought a factory. They make their own drums as per Bill's grandfather's specs, and the company is called UFL3.
Nice.
So Bill has been signing his name on hats and all kinds of stuff, and Steinway Pianos has sent him a cease and desist. You can't use the name Ludwig.
Huh.
So from here on in, I'm wearing the hat. This is the drum company, and they are the best drums ever made. I have a brand new kit that arrived last week downstairs. I just took the shells out of the boxes. They're green. They're absolutely gorgeous. And I'm having all the hardware, all the lugs, all the rims, everything powder coated white.
Nice.
So
nice.
That's gonna be gorgeous. It'll be out in a month, and you'll see all the pictures and videos and stuff. So I'm the Canadian
awesome.
ambassador and the only at this time Canadian endorser for Bill Ludwig's new company.
We'd
So
love
if
to
I
get
go to
him on the
Long
show,
McQuaid-
brother. We'd love to get him on the show. We had a big long talk with the Indy Zildjian, from Sabian. It was a great conversation. We'd love to have Bill on.
I can't promise a lot of stuff, but I can promise you I will get Bill Ludwig on the show whenever you want it.
Oh my God.
That's a fact.
So we'll hit you up on that, Barry. And if I was to go to Long McQuaid tomorrow, would I find any of their snares in there?
Here's the problem. Long McQuaid, and I don't like to slander anybody whatsoever. Long McQuaid bought 6 snare drums for their 80 stores, and they have not returned any of our calls since.
Oh.
So we don't know what is going on.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know. Steve's is a lot better.
Yeah.
And there's a company in Vaughan, just north of Toronto, called Drumland.
Yeah.
Now, Bill and I do clinics together. Bill does a clinic. It's really super fun. We did a few last year, and we did one for Drumland. So Bill does a clinic, which is the history of drums. So Bill's grandfather was the original guy that was behind the curtain in a silent movie, clicking horseshoes, doing the train whistle, doing the bells, and making all the sounds of percussion for silent movies.
Wow.
So Bill does a whole demonstration of that. Right up until now, here's my new drum company, and ladies and gentlemen, Barry, the weird guy Connors. And I get to play his drum kit for.
Is that your real middle name, the weird guy?
Only to Billy.
Well, I'll be interested to see where that goes because my one muse is I'm a snare drum junkie. I pretty much have every snare I've ever bought, and I'd love to hear them. And I'd love for you to keep me up to date on that because I'd love to hear one and see one out here. If there's any way we could help them be sold out here, I'd totally be into that too.
Well, my goodness, yeah, we're going to do that. I will tell you right now, I've got about 12 snare drums downstairs. I have one in the room here that is Bill's newest. I have one of Bill's first ones downstairs. I've got 2 Black Beauties that are original from 44 years ago.
Nice.
I've got about 5 other Ludwig snares. I've got 2 other drum company snares. Nothing sounds as good as my Bill 3 snare drum. And you would feel the same. You really would.
Awesome.
It's a cannon. I take it to places and sound men say, "What the hell is that?"
What size is it?
It's a 5x14.
Oh wow, nice.
I have 2 Black Beauties, one's 6.5, one's a 5, and it's a super sensitive.
Yeah.
But they don't compare. One
And
that
what do
I
you-
have is aluminum, so it's a very thin aluminum shell.
Oh, nice.
And the one that I just received a couple of weeks ago that matched my green kit is wood, and it's a
You making
3-ply
heads?
maple.
Is he making heads as well now, Barry?
No, Bill does not make heads. He makes shells. That's it. So the hardware is mostly done special for him. Legs for kick drums or Gibraltar. But his grandfather made 2 kinds of drums, 3-ply and 5-ply.
Yeah.
So poplar and maple. So a 3-ply, he'd do a maple, a poplar, and a maple. And a 5-ply, he'd do maple, poplar, or poplar, maple. And that's how he did his 5-ply. And his edges, his rims, everything is what his grandfather did 90 years ago. No one making drums is doing that. So the greatest name on drums and the history of Ludwig and all of that, sadly, is down the tubes. It's Bill Ludwig that's making the best drums in the world now.
Well, anything I can do to get the word out, my friend, I'll be into that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get him on the show. That's not a joke. If you guys are serious, he's the classiest, nicest guy you'll ever meet. And he will, he's got stories from Ringo to Ginger Baker and everything in between. He used to set up Buddy's drums on The Tonight Show.
Is that right?
His dad would make him go, and he would say, "Dad, Buddy's an asshole. Come on."
Yeah, fair enough.
And he said one of the first arguments he had with his dad, he said, I did this, and Buddy just yelled at me, screamed, he treated me like shit, and Dad, I don't want to do it anymore. And he said his dad turned to him and said something like, "Welcome to the drum world, son." And walked.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You're doing it. You're taking care of Buddy from now on.
You're still going to be an altar boy.
It's funny though. I mean, I can think of in all my years of meeting, and I won't name names because it's not nice. But I've met one drummer that I can honestly say I absolutely, could he play 100%? Didn't like him as a person. I met him 4 or 5 times.
Oh, come on. You got to spit out the name, and I'll give you one if you do.
Well, it rhymes with Lars Ulrich. But
I wouldn't have guessed that because I thought you said he could play.
Oh, see, I was being gracious, Barry. I was being gracious.
Yeah.
Well, actually, do you know Dan Filla? Do you know Dan Filla? Do you know Dan Filla that played with Varga and he's playing with Svengali now?
No, I remember Svengali like back before I joined Toronto. We're making it in the Toronto bar scene. That's like 30, 40 years ago.
Oh wow. We had Dan on. I don't know if we've aired it yet, but he had some very good arguments for Lars, but it was along the lines of one, he kind of got out of the thrash thing and got more groovy, and you got to give him to that. He reinvented himself.
Listen, let me take it all back. Sad but true. What a killer drum track.
Absolutely.
That may be his best drum track ever. I listen to that and think, wow, that is good. All night long? No, I'm not going there. I can't. I'd have to leave. But
I hear you. And like I said, I met him a number of times, and I'll give it to him. He's consistently the same way every time. So, you know what I mean?
That's a good name for a band. Consistently horrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I've met some other guys that were just like, you thought they were just like, I remember meeting, Carmine Appice out here at a drum clinic, and he was super cool. And his brother, Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden, was one of the funniest, nicest guys I've ever met in my life. So most drummers are cool. It's usually the bass players and guitar players.
I promised you a story, and you started the story for me now, so I'm going to finish it.
All right.
Peace. We were doing Your Daddy Don't Know, and I'd finished all the drum tracks, and I was just sitting in the studio, and the band was working on the record. And we got a call in the studio. Our manager got a call that Carmine Appice had a drum clinic in Toronto, and he could only matching Ludwig kick drums, and he couldn't get any. His drums were held up at the border for whatever reason, and he wasn't going to make the clinic. So they were begging, we'll give you 500 US if we can use your drummer's green drum kit, the ones in Your Daddy Don't Know. So I said to my drum tech, if you want to do it, I'll give you 250. You go do it all. If you don't, let's pass. He said, no, I want to meet Carmine and I'll take the 250. So shuffled all my drums off to a music hall, set them all up. Carmine came out, made a few adjustments, and there might have been 300 people there. And Carmine came out and played for about maybe 3 minutes. And let's face it, Carmine is one of the greatest rock drummers ever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He'll tell you 1,000 times Led Zeppelin opened for him.
Yeah.
And if you say pardon, he'll say it 1,000 more. So he stopped 3 minutes into this and he said, hey guys, thanks for coming to my clinic. I'm sorry you have to hear me play on this shit drum kit.
Oh.
And then played some more and went on and did some more great stuff. And he said, hey, I'm having some trouble tonight because this is the worst fucking drum kit I've ever played on in my life. And I'm standing side stage thinking, you fucking asshole. You had nothing. You wouldn't be here if I didn't help you out. Not a word of thanks to the drummer from Toronto. Nothing, right? Okay, yeah. Let it go. I leave. I don't want to meet him. I don't give a shit. About 2 months later, when the record's all done and released, we get a tour with Ted Nugent. And we got 30 shows with Ted. So I fly from Toronto to Detroit and get on a plane in Detroit. And I'm walking down the aisle to my seat. My seat is next to
Carmine Appice. Yeah,
Carmine Appice.
Yeah.
I sit down. He goes, hey, I'm Carmine. I said, yeah, I know who you are. Remember when you played in Toronto, that drum clinic, and you had no drums? He goes, yeah. I said, they were mine. You told everyone they were shit. Thanks a lot. He became my best friend. Sorry, man. Sorry. It's like no one talks to Carmine that way. Sorry. So we did 30 shows together and we hung out a lot. He was tons of fun. Sadly, on Facebook now, he won't acknowledge that he knows me.
Oh, well. I just remember he did a clinic out here in Halifax, and it was him and his brother, and they were soloing together.
Right.
And he walks away, and Vinny's just, the volume's here, and then Carmine comes back out, and Vinny walks away, and the volume went way down. I could not believe how powerful Vinny was. He was just incredible.
Carmine was. I mean, let's face it. Probably one of my favorite records for Carmine, without a doubt, is Beck Bogart a Piece.
Yep.
I mean, that's a killer record. Tim Bogart is like a monster singer, bass player, and obviously Beck's great. But that's some killer drumming.
I'd be remiss in asking, and again, back to those drums. I mean, yeah, love to get Bill on, and you get me information. I'll do what I can to get the word out down here because they sound killer. What are you using for cymbals these days?
Well, I was the second Canadian endorser for Sabian. Gary McCracken of Max Webster was first, and he signed with Sabian and Roy Edmonds in 82 or 81. And he said, hey, you should get Barry Connors, because we had become friends. And I signed with them. I probably got 40 cymbals over the course of 4 or 5 years. I have not bought a cymbal in 38 years.
Is that right?
Yeah, I have probably 6 or 8 in a cymbal bag. I've got 3 drum kits set up downstairs. They're all covered in cymbals. So blessed and very lucky. To me, Sabian are absolutely fantastic cymbals. I'm a loyal guy. I did Sabian ads with Frankie Banali. Hopefully he's healthy right now.
Yeah.
Phil Collins and Gil Moore. You know, I've still got a lot of magazines. Remember Cream magazine and a few of those drum magazines that I was lucky enough to appear in ads for Sabian. So I'm a pretty loyal Sabian guy.
I love that story. His family story blew my mind. Like I said, if you go right back to 1600, it's like, oh my God, this is a cool story. But I know the Ludwig story is very similar too. You know, but today we're really excited about the Connors story. So I mean, we appreciate you being on the show tonight here, Barry. It's been a blast for me. I'm a bass player. I'm not a cool drummer. Blah blah blah. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, you had some great stories, and just what a great talent you are, and thanks very much for being on our show.
And I
Well,
will-
listen, I really appreciate it, Dave. I got to say that's an oxymoron, cool and drummer.
Well, I was gonna say he's not even a cool bass player. Like I like the way he slid that in there. But anyway, straight up, Barry, what I'll do is I'll shoot you an email, and anything we can do to get the word out about those drums. They sound fantastic, man.
Yeah, I will gladly send you some photos, some links. I guarantee you, Bill would love to do the show.
Yep.
No
Yeah.
problem. We'll set that up, and I'd love you to hear them. And more than anything else, I'd love you to be able to play them.
That'd be fantastic, my friend.
Great.
You know what? This is I have a little thing that started about 3 months ago when we started this show, and it goes a little something like this. And Dave knows what I'm going to say. It's always cool when you meet somebody that you grew up listening to and they're not a dick. And I thank you for that, because this has been a lot of fun, and you were a gentleman through and through.
Wow, that's really heartfelt. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys even asking me to be on here, listening to my stories. I appreciate that a ton. And you heard 7 of my 13,000 stories.
Brother, we can get you back. We can get you back. It's our fucking show. We can do what we want. We can bring you back whenever we want.
That's fantastic. Thank
Yeah,
you guys so much.
Thanks.
Really
Thanks
appreciate
so
it.
much,
All
brother.
right. We'll be
Stay
in touch.
Cheers.
You take care, man. Thanks.
You too.